Pauls.
Here.
Palermo.
Here.
Festerson.
Here.
Mr. President.
Here. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing, please, for our invocation today by Council Member Benny Palermo.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. It's Tuesday. We're here. I'm happy to be here. And I know we also have an Omaha police officer who's very happy to be here today as well with the shooting we had almost exactly 7 days ago, last Tuesday. It's amazing, just a matter of a few inches, and we could be having a much different conversation here today. I know each of us work for the better of the city, and sometimes we're reminded that we still have a lot of work to do. So keep that officer in your thoughts and prayers. And also on a national level, terrible, terrible storm Florence. Keep all those people in your thoughts and prayers, and also the people that are there to help and support them as well. Thank you.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Omaha City Council. The council thanks you all for being here today. As a courtesy to those in attendance, we would ask you to turn off or mute any of your electronic devices. Before we go to the major portion of our agenda today, we have a group of students here today, and the students are from UNO's News Writing and Reporting class, and they're attending our city council today. We could have them stand and be recognized, please. Thank you all for being here. They're UNO News Writing and Reporting class, and we're sure you're not going to do anything that relates to fake news, so thank you for being here. Madam Clerk.
Items 6 to 8 relate to the same project and can be considered together for the Summer Hill Farm located southeast of 168th and State Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 6, an ordinance to rezone this property from AG to R4. Item 7, a resolution to approve the final plat for Summer Hill Farm. Item 8, a resolution to approve the Summer Hill Farm subdivision agreement.
Public hearing on agenda items numbers 6 through 8 are today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. Daniel D. Walsh, attorney on behalf of the applicant. These items 6 through 8 have received the approval of the planning department and unanimous approval of the planning board. We respectfully request your approval of the rezoning and platting, final platting, and the subdivision agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve items 6 through 8. No lights. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 6 through 8 are approved, 7-0. Items 9 to 11 relate to the Landmark Building located northeast of 13th and Harney Streets. A public hearing will be held on these items with a vote today only on item 9. Item 9, a resolution to approve an amendment to the Landmark Building Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan to request the substitution of funding sources, which involves the designation of an enhanced employment area and the use of the occupation tax. Item 10, an ordinance approving a redevelopment and tax increment financing, redevelopment and occupation tax agreement with Avedon Landmark LLC in an amount up to $9,824,122. Item 11, an ordinance providing for the designation of an enhanced employment area and the levy of a general business occupation tax for the Landmark Building project.
Public hearing on agenda items numbers 9 through 11 are today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. Bridget Hadley with the City Planning Department. Before you is an amendment to the Landmark Building TIF redevelopment project plan that was presented to the council back April 17th of this year and was approved. In similar fashion, we are bringing this back to you as we did with last week for the Blackstone Hotel. We're adding language to this TIF redevelopment project plan simply to include the developer's intention to request and propose an EEA, Enhanced Employment Area designation, as well as to request the use of the general occupation tax for this particular project. And just to remind you, so this is the landmark building, and this is the actual site plan. So this is the only portion of that in that area that will be, that is for the TIF project plan. So again, this is just for the TIF project plan, and to add that language in the plan for that proposal. The funding sources that were switched, the original funding source that was in there, the new market tax credits for $7.7 million, the applicant was not able to secure, so EEA is substituting that, and the amount of the EEA is $8.7 million. There are no other changes to the proposed plan that was approved back in April, and also the planning board did give approval to this amendment to the plan. And with that, I'd ask for your approval.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Kevin Anderson with the mayor's office. Just here, and the applicant, myself, and Jennifer Taylor from legal are here, happy to answer any questions. But here on behalf of the EEA Occupation Tax Committee, we met on this particular project on July 23rd and recommend approval based off of consistency with statutes and local ordinance. So be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard?
Good afternoon, Jason Fisher, 17534 Baywood Circle. Developer, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. I'm sorry, one opponent?
Larry Shore, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska. What I'm handing out for each of you is a publication put out by somebody other than me, Taxpayers for Freedom. I don't speak for them, I speak for myself. But that are the issues as to why I oppose tax increment funding and this new occupation tax and the employment district, whatever we're calling these things. According to certain documents, the state law says these things are intended for blighted areas. I don't consider the Landmark or the Blackstone a blighted area. I know there's an Omaha Land Bank, I think, somehow involved in all this, and there's a member of our council and our city council, or I mean our board and our city council, board of directors of those. I wonder why we have elected officials appointed to the boards of those when some of it's private corporation stuff and we're not entitled to information. But last week I learned the Blackstone people, the developing, might pay $20,000 or $30,000 out of their pocket.
Excuse me, sir, but we're talking about
we're
talking about the Landmark building.
Okay, how many dollars does the Landmark get out of tax increment financing? My point is, the developers are putting up very little. The taxpayers are putting up the rest. And I think there needs to be a lot more transparency, and the reasons are in that document. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. We can vote on item 9 today. Is there a motion?
Move 9.
Second
Questions.
question, Ms. Melton.
Thank you.
I didn't see you like. Come on.
No, that's okay. And I just want to, I mean, could somebody come up and speak to the, we stated, and I don't know, Mr. Fisher, if you could speak to it, or Kevin Anderson, but they stated that the EEA board approved this and it met the statutory requirements. But for purposes of the public, could you state how many jobs, what the development is, how much the developers are putting in? Could you at least give those details that I think Mr. Shore, it didn't
Sure.
know. So if you could maybe go give us a little more information and tell us whether the land bank had anything to do with your project.
No, it did not. So let me just kind of restate. So overall project is somewhere approaching $70 million. This is to rehab 6 floors of the Landmark building, convert some of those to a luxury hotel, excuse me. Also included is some rehabilitation of some retail space on 11th Street. The investment group, myself included, has more cash in the deal than tax increment financing. And this is part of our capital stack. Originally, we intended to, we did pursue and did not get new market tax credit as part of our capital stack. And so subsequently came back for this to replace that so that we could move forward with the project.
And as part of the EA, the Enhanced Employment Area, EEA,
yeah.
there's I believe it's 30 jobs. How many jobs do you anticipate creating as a result of this project?
So go ahead, Jennifer. I don't want to miss.
And I don't care who
yeah.
answers it. Somebody I know has the.
I wanted to make sure it's consistent with what the TIF application was. So.
Sorry.
Jennifer Taylor, City Law Department. The Enhanced Employment Area statutes require that for that designation that the proposed project create at least 30 jobs and have $3 million in investment. And the committee obviously was very comfortable with the fact that there was over $3 million in investment, and the hotel will bring more than 30 permanent full-time jobs to the project.
Thank you. And I was just curious if you could give any idea of how many jobs you're going to create.
So I know the hotel specific is at least 150 full-time jobs.
Okay.
And then there was estimates as far as construction jobs as well that I don't have off the top of my head.
And then for purposes of tax increment financing, clearly the landmark building is paying a significant amount. Do you know how much in property taxes you're paying right now, by chance?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, but that you will continue to pay the current property tax, so that
correct.
Taxpayers are not going to lose that money.
Absolutely.
And then is it your intention to have a 15-year loan to pay the TIF back?
Correct.
And so you're taking out, and I just think it's important. I know we go over this, but there are still people that don't necessarily understand how tax increment financing works, and they think it is on the backs of taxpayers.
Correct.
So you're going to take out a loan for the $8 million. I think it was 8.2 million,
mm-hmm.
And so you'll be paying that back when that's paid off. Then that money goes into the tax base, but you're still paying the current tax assessed value.
That is correct.
During that time.
Absolutely.
And at the end of that 15 years, then it's going to be a significant amount more.
Yeah. I think the other thing to point out in this case, we are looking to monetize the occupational tax up front. So, there will be interest and loan payments on that as well as we go forward. It's part of our capital stack up front, going to project costs, initial project costs, versus recouping as part of the operational, income going forward.
And what's the percentage that you're going to be for the occupation tax?
So there's various components,
right.
and of note, I think the majority of our revenue is going to come from the hotel rooms, and that was, what are we on that, 3%? 3% on the hotel rooms. Then on the then we're going to also have on the parking revenue as well, same, and any soft retailers, that would be anything other than food and beverage outlets, restaurants or bars. Those are not going to be subject to our occupational tax.
Those are not going to be subject to your occupational tax?
Yep, not in this project.
Okay. And I just think it's important that and I know we went through some of these facts in the initial application, but since there were some questions, I just wanted to make sure that we were clear that it is a $70 million investment that you are making. And in fact, when we talk about the TIF, that's not free money to you. It's just money that you're using. You're going to be paying that back in the form of a loan that you'll be paying.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. I appreciate it. I just wanted to make those clarifications. And I also just wanted to clarify today, we're just voting on number 9, which is the tax increment financing.
Yes. There are no further lights. Is there a motion? Oh, you did motion in a second. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 9. No further lights. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 9 is approved, 7-0. Item 12, an application to consider a Class C liquor license for 4 Bakery LLC, doing business as Farine and 4, located at 3020 Leavenworth Street, Suite 1. A is communications and support.
Public hearing on agenda item number 12 is today. Proponents, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Second, roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo. Festerson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 12 is approved, 7-0. Item 13, an application to consider a Class D liquor license for Four Seasons Convenience Store LLC, doing business as Nations Mart, located at 6620 South 36th Street.
Public hearing on agenda item number 13 is today. Proponents, please.
Michael Polk, 2712 South 87th Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant, and the 3 owners of the corporation are here with me today as well.
Thank you. Are there any other, and you're going to answer any questions?
Any
we might
answer any
have?
questions, of course.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moved and seconded to approve item 13. No lights. Roll call.
Harding. Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 13 is approved, 7-0. Items 14 to 17 relate to Keno satellite agreements and can be considered together. Resolutions to grant approval to EHPV Lottery Service to operate Big Red Keno satellite locations for the following. Item 14, Addie's Sports Grill, Maple, Inc., doing business as Addie's Sports Grill and Bar, located at 14615 West Maple Road, Suites 100 to 102. Item 15, BH Hospitality Company, LLC, doing business as Moe and Curly's, Pub and Grill, and Howard and Fine, located at 1011 Capitol Avenue. Item 16, Menor and Maynard, Inc., doing business as Pat and Mike's Bar and Grill, located at 9136 Bedford Avenue. Item 17, TP Restaurant Omaha, LLC, doing business as Twin Peaks, located at 17330 West Center Road.
Public hearing on agenda items numbers 14 through 17 are today. Proponents, please.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Katrina Coffey. I'm Vice President of Marketing for Big Red Keno. We're located at 11248 John Galt Boulevard. I have with me today all 4 of the owners for all 4 locations, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moved and seconded to approve items 14 through 17. There are no lights. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo. Festerson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 14 through 17 are approved, 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the city council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the city council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the city council rules of order.
The public hearings on agenda items 18 through 20 were held on September 11th, 2018.
Motion approved. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve items 18 through 20. There are no further lights. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 18 through 20 are approved, 7-0.
The public hearing on agenda items numbers 21 through 34 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by your name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. Keep in mind, we're going to take item number 27 off of consent. So the consent, we're going to have a separate public hearing on item number 27. So we'll be from 21 through 26, 28 to 34 is what we'll be asking you to make a motion on today. Unless anybody wants to say anything. Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
21 through 26 and 28 through 34? Second.
Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 21 through 26 and 28 through 34 approved, 7-0. Item 27, a resolution to approve the bid award to Tab Holding Company, Inc., doing business as Tab Construction for OPW 52493 for the 132nd and West Center Road Intersection Improvements Project in the amount of $5,086,189.05, with the city's local share in the amount of $508,618.91.
Public hearing on agenda item number 27 is today. Proponents, please.
Mr. President, members of council, Troy Anderson, Deputy Chief of Staff for the Mayor's Office. On behalf of the Mayor, I wanted to provide some confirmation on some information. The Mayor did have a conversation with Governor Ricketts this morning. We are in receipt of a letter from Governor Ricketts addressed to Mr. Selden, Mr. Silverman. In the letter, Mr. Ricketts states that the following. West Center Road is the property of the City of Omaha, and any decisions regarding changes to the design of the project are solely theirs. NDOT, in their role as the administrator of federal funds, has communicated to the city their willingness to work with Omaha if they wish to make changes to the project. I'll go ahead and submit that for the record now. With that being said, we are recommending that City Council concur with the bid award as presented to you today. In the interest of time and in the interest of avoiding the risk of funding associated with the project, we are asking that the City Council concur with the bid award today. We wish to continue to work with not only Public Works but the neighboring property owners in trying to find a resolution in the future, but at this point in time, again, in order to not to jeopardize either the funding or the timing on the project, we are recommending that City Council concur with this. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Proponents?
Also from City Public Works Department, Gail Sturt, I'm a proponent for the project as well, and as Mr. Anderson stated, we recommend that City Council approve the contract as currently written. And I have spoke directly with NDOT today, and they have concurred that they would be willing to entertain a potential change, but there could be some conditions on it, but they recommend we go through approval and we could reconsider it with them.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard?
Jeff Rieselman, Public Works Traffic Division, 1819 Farnham Street. Just here to answer any questions that come up related to the discussion in the hearing.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? On item 27, any proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Welcome, Randy.
Thank you. My name is Randy Lenhoff. I represent Selden Company. I live at 1214 South 194th Street here in Omaha. And the Selden family developed Montclair Shopping Center in the south east corner of this intersection almost 60 years ago. And as we talked about in pre-council this morning, it has some real concerns about the lack of transparency throughout the process. I just handed to be passed out to you some emails that I traded as late as last week with the planning department, or the Public Works Department on this project, asking for help as to why I couldn't get a hearing somewhere with someone to talk about this project. As you can see, if you go through those emails, you'll see that none of them were responded, or one was responded to, but generally I was kept in the dark, and I asked for a reach out. I was told at one point somebody from legal was going to call me. That call never happened. That's been our problem with this process all the way through. Now, what I'm hearing right now, I believe, and this is news to me, that there's some opportunity to make some adjustments, and I don't know what that means, because this morning I was heard there were no adjustments that could be made unless I misunderstood it. So I'm hearing now that the state is saying they are willing to look at some minor adjustments. I would think the left-hand turn we're requesting off of at 130th and Center would be a minor adjustment. That's what I've been told before when I've talked to the state. So maybe there is a glimmer of hope of working something out, and I am hopeful. I don't know if anybody who's here who's been involved in that discussion can clarify for me if that's what we're going to do, is talk next week?
My understanding is, based on testimony so far, Randy, is that there is opportunity to do that. They're suggesting that we pass it today, and that there will be opportunity for you all to discuss some potential changes to some potential minor changes to the design of the road.
Okay, all right. I hope that that will happen. I haven't had good experience with that in the past, but I am hopeful. I'm glad to hear that. The other thing I mentioned this morning that I would like to see considered by the city is the work on Augusta and 129th Street. I think I forwarded some pictures this morning. I don't know who I gave them to for sure, but hopefully they're available. But there's work. Augusta in particular needs quite a bit of work. 129th is in pretty rough shape too. Those are going to be our two main access points after this construction's done. So I would hope that the city would consider going in and repairing those streets at the same time, or shortly there, with coordinating it with it, I should say.
Well, Randy, for the record, I mean, this is all recorded, so this is for the record. So there have been some assurances made to you here for the record that there are some possibilities for potential changes.
Okay, all right. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I think we're going to go through the public hearing first to see if there are any other opponents. Okay. If not, then we'll have question and answer.
All right, thank you.
All right. Are there any other opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Ms. Melton.
Thank you. Could I get somebody from the city? I know Councilman Harding put the map up there. I think what would be important would be to show everybody here and anybody watching and the public in general. I know we have lots of people here that may be writing news stories about it, but it's not clear to me, at least. Could you tell me exactly what we're doing for the change? I mean, I understand that we're going to widen and we're going to do the turns on 132nd, but I think it would be good to present the whole plan, if you would, to everybody so we know what medians, what turns are going to be eliminated in the proposal as is, where the entrances to all of the, not just Montclair, but also Baker Square. I think it would be important to show everybody the whole project.
Yes, Ms. Milton.
Thank you.
Gail Sturdivant with City of Omaha Public Works. Give you an overview of the project. The exhibit I'm going to share with you is the same exhibit that was shared at the public meeting that was held September 29th of 2016. Same improvements that we're proposing for construction today. As I start on Center Street at 129th going west,
in that paper, or did you want to use the map over here in the other? Which would be better? This one would be better? The light's terrible on that one.
And it's not shrunk down to fit.
That didn't help much, but
maybe shrink it.
Well, at least it shows the streets.
Okay.
Let me begin by orienting you to the map. On the far right-hand side of the screen, the street that is in this location, that is 129th Street. Center Street runs east-west through the center of the screen. And then the other red item you see towards the middle of the screen, that is 132nd. Just a moment, let me see if there's another smaller copy. It's the same exhibit. Jeff, can you have the same one?
Use the one that Brinker put on the table.
Unfortunately, I don't have a smaller version.
Well, could we use maybe the one that Councilman Member Harding put on the table? Because I know it doesn't have your red, but and if we could shrink it so that it shows 129th. Need this one.
You need the mic. Zoom up. He has a hand mic for it.
Okay.
Do you have a pointer? You can put yours on there too. Yes. There you go.
That's better lighting.
Yeah, it is better.
He's going to do it.
Okay. On the right side of the screen is 129th Street. See Center Street going center across the middle of the page, and the red towards the middle going up and down, that is 132nd Street. As we start heading westbound on West Center, we first hit 129th Street. You continue to have a left turn movement to southbound 129th Street at that location. As we start moving to the west, we currently have an enhanced right turn lane into 131st Street to the north, and then to the south. This is actually the median, I believe, that Mr. Limhop is concerned about. Right now, you currently have left movements that you're allowed to make, and with this project, that median break would no longer be there. But what is added as you continue to move west is a dual left turn lane onto 132nd Street. And it's important to note the focus of a lot of the intersection improvements in this area are to provide dual left turn lanes in all four legs of this intersection. As you continue to move west, we do have a median break for both left turn and right turn movements at 133rd Plaza, and then the project ends about 135th Street when you move east-west on Center. From moving south to north, we tie in at Augusta Avenue. Moving north, there are currently medians that go into access drives both the shopping centers to the south side of Center Street. Today there are allowed left turn movements. In the future, that would be a raised median. Then we go back up to up to Center Street. Then we have the dual left movement into the westbound direction. Coming from, and then also as you continue on north, we do have a right turn movement into the shopping center in the northeast corner. As you were heading southbound on 132nd, we do have a right in, right out turn that is into the shopping center in the northwest side. And then at 132nd, again, we have the dual left turn movements. So that is an overview of kind of what the improvements are included in the project. I believe that the main area of concern right now is what is currently a allowable left turn movement into the shopping center in the southeast corner. That access point would stay the same location, but it would only have a right in, right out movement. So other ways to access that shopping center would be up 129th Street and 132nd in Augusta. There also will be U-turn movement allowed at 132nd Street. So if somebody really wanted to get into that location, they could do a U-turn and come into that same access point.
Okay, and thank you. And I just wanted to, so what other, you're going to do a median down 132nd. Between 132nd and Augusta, there's going to be a median, so there won't be any left turns?
There's only left turns allowed at West Center and Augusta. There is a raised median through there, so you would not be able to turn left at this location.
Okay, and then you're proposing to do the same kind of median down Center Street between 129th and 132nd, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and are you affecting anything on 132nd going north of Center?
Yes, there is a raised median going to the north as well, which would, there's two access points to the shopping center in the north. They would only be allowed right in, right out movements.
Okay. And you're not making any changes then moving west from 132nd, between 132nd and 135th, you're still going to allow the left turns in front of Baker Square there?
In that case, we are able to get that in safely.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear that so everybody knew where the medians were and what turns were going to be cut. So thank you, and I think I'll let other council members ask their questions. I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear as to what we were doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gail, as long as you're up there, could you restate what you said at the beginning, please, as it related to the working with the NDOT?
Yes, sir. I did speak with NDOT since pre-council today, since we were in receipt of the letter from the governor and the information from the mayor's office. Spoke with them. They did say that they would allow us to at least bring forward a change order for further consideration. It would be looked at both by NDOT and then forward for Federal Highway for consideration for approval.
Okay, thank you. And then as it relates to the timing of the approval of the bid, I'll ask you to address that, but I'm also going to ask Director Stubbe to see if he can clarify. On the way in, I just asked one more time, as it relates to timing, if there was any ability to lay this over.
So I've asked for confirmation as well, and if you would allow me to have additional staff come and speak on
Sure.
that. She spoke directly with the contract office today.
Heather Tippy Pierce, Public Works. I did place a call into NDOT contracts letting. The information that I currently have is that they need at least 7 days in order to execute on their side. So that would not give us enough time to lay over. They were taking that to their supervisors who have been in meetings, so we're still kind of waiting for a definitive answer. But in typical processes, we would need to get this concurrence to them by tomorrow, Thursday at the latest, in order for them to work with the contractor for bonds, insurance, execution, and then get to the mayor for execution within that 30-day window from bid letting.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gail, let me go back to you if I could. As it relates to the possibility of making a change order, we talked at length at pre-council today what that may or may not do as it relates to the federal funding portion of this. Can you address that?
I will do my best.
Okay.
To start with, I did get to talk with the NDOT, and we would have to, for the process with the change order, we would have to go through them, get concurrence with them, and in this case also from Federal Highway. That would actually keep us at least at a checking point to see whether or not we would get their concurrence and we could obligate funding for this change. If for some reason we don't move forward for it, the funding that is currently obligated for the project would be de-obligated and would be assigned to other projects.
So, okay, I want to make sure we're all clear on this. If we went through the process, made a change order, that change order was not approved, then the city could still move forward without losing the federal funds.
They would not approve the change order. So the contract would be between NDOT and the contractor. We would be proposing a change order to be considered by NDOT. They would ask Federal Highways for concurrence for approval, and they may ask us to do some more NEPA process associated with it to get concurrence, and it may or may not still be accepted by the Federal Highway Administration. If they decided that it was not in the best interest for the project to make the change, they would recommend denial of that change order. One of the other things they would consider is also the cost-benefit ratio for the project. I did check on that, and right now with the changes that they are proposed, we're right at basically that threshold of whether or not we'd be able to keep the project anyway. But
based on what criteria?
So they look at the value. They have a process where they provide the cost-benefit ratio based on the construction cost and potential benefits for the reduction of crash. So they assign values based on the crash history.
Okay.
And from that, they calculate a value, and then that's how it's determined whether or not it's eligible for safety funding. And it goes through a couple different committees to get that federal funding identified as a possible option for the project.
So I know this project's been something that's been kind of looked at and analyzed and worked on for 5+ years or so, and certainly I think we want to make sure that we don't lose our place or lose the access to those federal funds. But I think it's important for us all to hear on the record that there is a willingness to at least have that conversation about a change order, and that will not jeopardize those federal funds, but it will also give the city and Public Works an ability to work with the property owners on a possible change order to that.
We could definitely take a look and propose a change order for consideration by NDOT and Federal Highways without losing the money.
Okay.
If they choose not to accept the change order, then we would have to proceed as is. If they allowed us to change, we may have to meet some other requirements, and it may end up changing the timing of the project. But at least asking for the assistance up front does not jeopardize the money today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Festerson.
Thanks, Mr. President. I think that mostly covers my questions from this morning, but I would maybe offer 2 comments. I'm not on the Public Works Committee, and this is not my district, and I know this area has been thought of for improvements for quite some time, but I was not aware until this morning there was contention about the design, and so it's always places the council, I think, in a difficult position when that comes to light a few hours before our 2 o'clock meeting, and then we're told there's a deadline, by the way, that it can't be delayed and must be approved today, otherwise funding is jeopardized. So that's always a concern to me, and I want to offer that up to those that have been working on this, that's a frustration of mine today. But then secondly, I would say, with that in mind, I think we are in a bit of a bind in terms of what we must do today, not to jeopardize $5 million in federal funding for this. And I think the other thing I hope can be done is we can accommodate the concerns we heard this morning in this mix going forward. But also I think it's important for people to know why this is an important project, which is if you do live there or if you try to access the interstate there, you know how congested this is every day. And it's also one of the top 10 intersections for accidents in the city. So that's something we must keep in mind too when we move forward with this and try to make these repairs as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question. I know behind the scenes there will be negotiations. Would the city's attitude towards this change order be taken into consideration? Because if you're talking to DOT, anybody like that, they can pick up if there is any resistance on our part for making any changes. See, I'm always in a quandary of thinking we'll do that, but we can also be just going through the actions. And the reason why, I'll just give some of my past experiences. I can remember presenting legislation that was accepted by the governor, but the HHS department really didn't care for it. But the governor and everybody was for it, so we got it in there. But they delayed it so much because we had somebody giving money. I'll tell you the person's name, Gail Werner Robinson, wanted to give so many dollars to help with autism. But there was so much resistance from the department behind the scenes that she just eventually got frustrated. So I'm always suspect when we say, well, we're going to turn it over and then we'll wait and see what they say. Are we going to go in there with the attitude, we want to make this work? Am I hearing that, or am I?
I think that we would definitely be presenting it fairly. I do want to let you know that in the NEPA documents, these questions were documented as being asked in 2016 right. and responded to. So it is part of the decision document on record that shows that this is not consistent with the city's policy, and it does show some contradictions with what's recommended from the traffic study. So in all fairness there, but I think that we could still objectively present it for consideration if there was other information to present for NDOT and for federal highways. But it is contrary to what we've published.
Yeah, and that's why I understand. I understand the rules of the game. But if I'm picking up from the people on this side of the table said we ought to really take a serious look at it. That's all I'm asking, because we can say yes and then move behind the scenes and say, hey, we're just doing this just to appease a few people sitting in front of the microphones. But you're telling me that's not in the cards in your eyes.
I feel like, again, we would present a change order objectively with the data.
That's all I'm asking, just because from past experiences. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. There are no more lights. Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve item 27. There are no further lights. Roll call.
Harding.
I have a question before. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I know we've got it stated on the record. I don't know that we need an amendment to say anything additional about the department and the property owners working together. Are we all comfortable with that being at least stated on the record and not part of the resolution? Alan?
Alan Thielen with the Law Department. As I mentioned this morning, theoretically you could attach a condition to the resolution. However, that might raise the danger of having a resolution with a contingency go down to the authorities with the state and possibly losing that funding. So that might not be a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve item 27. There are no further lights.
Harding.
Yeah.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 27 is approved, 7-0.
Yeah. And Randy, just so you know, the record is the record. So it's on the record. I appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
Item 35, an ordinance to amend Omaha Municipal Code, Section 26-24, to allow gap and extend improvements of portions of streets or alleys not previously improved to meet or exceed the city's minimum standards.
Public hearing agenda item number 35 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 36, an ordinance to designate the K apartment house located at 118 North 31st Street as a landmark. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on agenda item number 36 is today. Proponents, please.
Arun Agrawal, 105 North 31st Avenue, 68131. Just here to answer any questions.
Okay. Any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 37, an ordinance approving a redevelopment and tax increment financing loan agreement with 1919 Douglas Street LLC to implement the bank Phase 2 tax increment financing redevelopment project plan for redevelopment site located at 1919 Douglas Street in an amount up to $5 million.
Public hearing on agenda item number 37 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning. A straightforward agreement. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard?
Todd Heaston, New Style Development, 2223 Dodge Street, here for the second reading, so here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 38, an ordinance approving a redevelopment and tax increment financing loan agreement with BH and JH Leavenworth LLC to implement the Charlie Graham tax increment financing redevelopment project plan for a redevelopment site located at 4103 Leavenworth Street in an amount up to $562,944.
Public hearing on agenda item number 38 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Bridget Hadley, City Planning, here to answer questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. Brent Beller, 1144 Western Road, appearing on behalf of the project applicant BH and JH Leavenworth. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 39, an ordinance to amend Section 10-200.2 of the Omaha Municipal Code to change the word certification or certified to authorization or authorized.
Public hearing on agenda item number 39 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 40, an ordinance to amend Sections 30-263, 30-264, and 30-265 of the Omaha Municipal Code to reduce the number of members of the Fireworks Committee to 4, to reduce the number of fireworks sales permits issued from 50 to 40, and to add a requirement for the permit holder to post a city-approved sign displaying the fireworks discharge period and the penalties for conviction of a violation.
Public hearing on agenda item number 40 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Ann Kresman, 1902 O Street. I'm a member of SOTF, South Omaha Environmental Task Force. The South Omaha Environmental Task Force was founded about 45 years ago to deal with environmental problems caused by South Omaha packing houses. Today we have a broader range of environmental issues that we are concerned with. I'd like to read a letter that was written by Dwayne Brooks, chairperson of SOTF, and agreed to by SOTF members attending our last meeting. Honorable Mayor Stothard and City Council, the South Omaha Environmental Task Force wishes to express our support of your amendment to change the ordinance on limiting fireworks sales and ignition in Omaha. Your proposal to limit fireworks sales to 7 days and limit ignition of fireworks to 3 days, which is in a week or two to come, reducing the number of fireworks sales permit holders from 50 to 40, to add a requirement for permit holders to clearly display a city-approved notice showing firework discharge periods and penalties for conviction of a violation, are all positive steps to limit many problems in our community. The impact on military veterans and others with post-traumatic stress syndrome, young children and pets, safety concerns, and air, water, and ground pollution are some of the problems related to fireworks sales and ignition. So please vote to amend the ordinance on fireworks sales and ignition in Omaha. Respectfully, Dwayne Brooks, Chairperson. And I would like to add a comment. By taking these reasonable steps, each of you can help make our National Day of Celebration a little safer, a little more peaceful, and enjoyable for all in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard?
Vince Bellino Fireworks. I guess the gist of what I was up here for is maybe just have some questions regarding the proposal. I guess wanted to maybe hear some input of why we went from 50 to 40. Felt like we had a public concern over discharge and how that related to permit holders in general. How did discharge come to permit holders? I don't know if anybody from the council can address that.
After your testimony, there'll probably be some explanation to some of your questions.
And then the selling days, and I called down and tried to talk to Carmen a little bit today on what the selling days would be. I'm assuming the article in the paper is going to be the 7 days and the 3 days of discharge. It wasn't put on this. That'd be another general question that we have. And then the addressing of the permit fee itself, if we are reducing the number of days that they can sell. Those are some concerns or questions that I had.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. Basically, today we have a couple topics that we're discussing, and I will talk a bit more in more depth about next week, because that is not a public hearing, but we will be voting on it. I will talk about the current and the proposed. The first thing on what we're talking about today is the application procedures. What we're doing on the committee, we are changing the city clerk will no longer be part of that committee, because we want everybody on there to be an elected official. So that was one reason, and she's okay with that, although she's sick today. The number of permits, we went from 50 to 40. And I do want to just remind some people, not too long ago, it was 25. It was 25. So even if we do reduce it to 40, we did increase it a number of years ago. And I did talk to some of the vendors, and they said, well, you know, if you're putting all these restrictions on us, you ought to think about, and this is from the vendors also, you should think about maybe reducing the number of places that do sell fireworks. And I'll just do a little bit of talking about that. I did pull up a map to show you where all the fireworks stands happen to be. But let me see, on the east side of 72nd Street, there are 8. On the other side of 72nd, there are 42. Now, if you go to 90th Street, it's about 37. So you can see the majority of the people are further west. And as you look at the map, I know you can't see, but I'll make sure that the council gets this. You can see that an awful lot of them are almost on top of each other. So a little disappointing that the people who are selling the fireworks would be a little bit more aware of putting them almost door to door in some cases. Not all, but in some of those. So, and just to let you know, there are 11 vendors. 11 vendors. Some of them get nobody. 2 of them get the majority. What I find is interesting. And now I'm talking to the people out there, the nonprofit organizations. Don't sign these contracts too fast. Search out and start talking to the different vendors, because what the vendors have done in the past, they get you locked in for 3 years. I'm saying I want to make money, of course, but I'd like to see the nonprofits. So I'd like to have you think and talk to a number of them, because if there are 11 vendors and there are a couple of them who get next to nothing, you might be able to negotiate with them. Say, hey, I'll take you, but what can you get back? Negotiate. Be a good entrepreneur. I think that would be a positive thing. Like I say, there are 11, and 2 of them have about half of them. So that goes to show you the ones who speak loudly are probably the ones who have most of the nonprofits. The next thing that on the sales regulations, right now that they need to put a safety pamphlet goes into everybody who buys the fireworks. But thanks to some individuals on the council said, hey, we need to post a sign, with the sign's going to be required to be with the discharge period and the penalties. So that will be very upfront so people will know that. So those are the things that basically we're talking about today. Now I'm going to go into some of the additional comments that were asked for, and we'll be voting on those for next week. We'll be talking about the fireworks discharge permits. Now I'm going to talk about the mayor's ordinance, and now the amendments on this particular we're trying to amend the code. Okay, current code discharge 10 days. The mayor's proposed code was 5 days. The law committee's 3 days. Because if you read the article, the letter that was just given to us, we need to think about dogs, little children, and those military veterans who need maybe a little bit more peace and quiet. So logic told us a little bit, well, decreasing to 3 days. And there was grounds, probably a little bit push, to eliminate them altogether. This is not 7-0 saying let's keep them. Be surprised how I never pursued that too in depth, but that was one of the things that was tossed to me. Now here's an interesting thing I thought. Around the Christmas holidays, namely December 31st, but we have 4 days that you can fire fireworks off right now. The mayor's was to say with 4 days. We're saying now it should be 1 day. It's really interesting, and also talk about selling fireworks. They'd have to buy them in the summertime, so they're going to have to keep them over for several months. So that sort of diffuses the idea of too many sales days as compared to days to fire them off. Another thing is penalties. Currently, the code says $200 fine. Council member Melton suggested with the mayor's ordinance that it would be $300, $400, and up to $500, depending on the third or more, and up to 7 days in jail. Reconsider that. We're still going to have the $300. This is the proposed $300 for first, $400 for second, third would be $500 fine. That is the proposal now. Now let's talk about fireworks sales, because this seems to be another issue. Currently, the current code says you can do it for 12 days. 12 days. The mayor said she would like to have it for 6 days. The one we're proposing is for 7 days. And the reason why we did 7 days, a number of people said we'd like to make sure we include a weekend on that. So that's the reason why we have one more day as compared with the mayor. But with right now it's 12 days. The mayor's 6, and we're saying 7. So those will all be talked about next. Not talked about. We'll be voting on those issues next week. But I thought I'd better be talking about it now so we could get a little bit of information. So something to think about. This is like any piece of legislation. It can be changed. Nobody has total ownership and say this is the way it must be. Even if we would pass this all the way it is today, does not mean that next time around next year say, whoa, there's a flaw here that we can't change it. That's one reason why we meet on a regular basis, so we can make changes if needed. So those are the major issues that I want to get across today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pauls. And before we move to the next item, there are no more lights, but before we move to the next item, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you, thank the council staff, thank the law department and others. This was a monumental task that you took on, and in all seriousness, thank you, and thank the staff, thank the law department, thank you all for the work that you did on this. It was a tremendous piece of work, and it's an issue that many in our community face, and I know it's a tough one. And again, thank you for doing that. Next item, please.
Item 41, an ordinance to approve the fiscal year 2018 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program application in the amount of $376,710 during the period of October 1st, 2017 to September 30th, 2021.
Public hearing agenda item number 41 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, your opponent?
Do I need to state my name and address again?
Yes, you do.
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette. Aren't there usually strings attached when you get money from the federal government? Seems to me like I heard that. I can't believe Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, the JAG program. How much money? $376,710. That also kind of comes out of my billfold because I pay federal taxes. So I wonder, do we have a right to know what those programs actually are and what stakeholders in Omaha get the grants to perform those programs? I'd also like to know, there doesn't appear to be anything there for religious services, church ministries. Do they get to do this in our county jails? Do they have to pay out of their pockets to do that while other people get federal dollars? I think that might be wrong. Let's take a hard look at that. We do have people in Omaha that volunteer. They call themselves charitable organizations. That implies to me there's no cost to it. Let's look at home first. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Non-action items. Items 42 through 67 do not require a public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and/or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on an agenda for consideration.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second. Roll call.
Harding.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Melton. Yes. Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion approved, 7-0. Meeting adjourned at 3:02.